There is a small coffee shop on a quiet street in Kyoto where tourists almost never go. Every morning, at exactly 7 o'clock, a man in an impeccable dark coat arrives there. He orders a black coffee, sits at a wooden table by the large window, and takes a small leather-bound notebook from his pocket. He does not place a smartphone on the table. He does not check his morning email or scroll through the news feed. He opens his notebook, takes a pen, and quietly writes something down for 10 minutes. His movements are slow and deliberate. Then he closes the notebook, puts it back into his pocket, calmly finishes his coffee, and goes to work. His face radiates absolute clarity and unwavering calm. There is no trace of that morning panic familiar to all of us, no tension in his shoulders, no darting gaze. And somewhere, on the other side of the world, at this exact moment, someone wakes up to the harsh sound of an alarm on a screen. This person has not even managed to get out of bed yet, but their heart is already beating at an accelerated pace. They open one task planning app, then another, then a work messenger, then their email. Their brain is instantly flooded by an avalanche of tasks, other people's ideas, unread messages, and obligations. They feel a heavy, almost physical weight from the panicked fear of forgetting something. What if the difference between these two people has absolutely nothing to do with their profession, income level, or the number of tasks, but depends entirely on a few almost invisible information management habits that most of us were never taught? By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what these habits are, why they work on such a deep level that modern digital apps never touch, and how you can free your mind tonight just by picking up a blank sheet of paper. Before we dive into these practices, we need to talk about a grand illusion that has been aggressively sold to us for years. An illusion that makes you feel guilty every single day. Western productivity culture has convinced us that the chaos in our lives can be overcome simply by finding the perfect digital tool. We were told that if we download the right app, set up the right digital calendar, and sync all our devices, we will finally become organized and calm. We install dozens of programs, create complex systems with color-coded tags, and set hundreds of reminders. But the chaos and anxiety only multiply. Open your phone right now and honestly answer how many productivity apps, habit trackers, and digital notebooks you have downloaded in recent years that now just hang there as dead weight, only reminding you of your unfulfilled plans. Let us know in the comments how many of these abandoned life-organizing apps you have right now. We have been taught that the human brain is a kind of hard drive. We have been convinced that we must keep all our brilliant ideas, grocery lists, deadlines, acquaintances' birthdays, and weekend plans inside our heads or scattered across countless digital folders. And when you inevitably forget something, when you lose focus, you start to consider yourself disorganized, weak, or lazy. But this is absolutely not your fault. Your brain was never designed throughout evolutionary history to store such a massive amount of information. Your mind is designed to generate ideas, analyze space, create and solve complex problems, not to be a bottomless warehouse for to-do lists. When you try to remember everything, you create an enormous mental burden. It is as if you are keeping 50 open tabs in a browser that quietly but constantly consume your energy until the entire system crashes from overload. This invisible memorization work exhausts you before you have even begun taking real action. But this is only the first domino. Because once you understand how Japanese culture approaches the preservation of thoughts, your entire perspective on planning will drastically change. In Japanese philosophy, there is a deep respect for emptiness and open space. This applies not only to their minimalist architecture, the art of ikebana, or traditional interiors, but directly to the human mind. They do not try to artificially expand their memory using complex digital crutches. They use the concept of an external brain. And most often, this external brain takes the form of an ordinary analog paper notebook. And this is not an archaic step back into the past at all. It is a highly conscious, strategic choice that protects the psyche from burnout. The first and most important habit, which quietly creates this calm, is the daily physical offloading of thoughts.
Imagine that your mind is a glass of cloudy water with hundreds of tiny grains of sand floating in it. Each grain is a thought about needing to buy milk, reply to an email, pay a bill, or call your relatives. If you constantly shake this glass with new tasks, the water will never become clear. Paper acts as the perfect filter. Every morning before you start your day, or every evening before bed, you take a pen and simply write down absolutely everything that is bothering you on paper. All the minor household chores, all the global fears, all the unexpected ideas swirling in your head. You literally take this physical weight out of your head and transfer it onto the sheet. At this exact moment, something magical happens on a profound neurobiological level. Your internal brain sees that the information is safely stored in a physical world that can be touched, and it finally relaxes. It lets go of constant control. It realizes that it no longer needs to work around the clock in the background to stop you from forgetting an important meeting. You stop wasting precious energy on retaining information. Your mind becomes empty and clear, ready for real life. This realization quietly lifts an immense burden off your shoulders and restores your ability to breathe deeply. If this approach has already changed your perspective on why you constantly feel tired, subscribe so you don't miss the next unobvious habits that return control over your own life. And here, something else happens. Something almost no one talks about when superficially comparing the convenience of digital notes with paper records. When you type text quickly on the glowing screen of a smartphone, your fingers make exactly the same mechanical movements. To your nervous system, there is no difference whether you type the word vacation, the word disaster, or just a grocery list. All words feel identical. But when you write by hand, you create a unique physical pattern for every thought. Your hand moves at a certain speed, you feel the texture of the paper beneath your palm, and you hear the quiet, soothing sound of the pen rubbing against the page. This purely physical act naturally slows you down. It pulls you out of the endless digital race and forces you to be present in a specific moment. If you tried to write out 40 unimportant, fabricated minor tasks by hand, you would get physically tired. And this is exactly where the brilliant, almost invisible filter of the Japanese approach to planning lies. Paper forces you to become an essentialist. If a task or idea is not worth spending a few seconds physically writing it down, it is most likely not worth your attention or time at all. Modern digital lists allow us to mindlessly add hundreds of tasks in a single second. They create a dangerous illusion of hyper-productivity. We look at a lengthy list on our phone and feel very busy and important. But at the end of the day, this illusion turns into a toxic feeling of guilt for not completing even a tenth of what was planned. Paper, on the other hand, naturally limits our appetites. It honestly tells us that our resources, our time, and our energy are finite. The space on the page runs out, just like the hours in a day. And instead of perceiving this as a limitation, we must see it as liberation. Refusing the unimportant is not a defeat. It is the main principle of energy conservation. The next habit, which quietly flows from the previous one, concerns creating strict spatial boundaries for your attention. In the modern Western world, the boundaries between work, entertainment, rest, and personal life are completely blurred. Your phone is a universal device on which you receive urgent messages from your boss, read anxious world news, communicate with your family, and supposedly try to plan your quiet future. This is an incredibly toxic mixing of contexts. Imagine you open a digital notes app to record a profound idea, and suddenly a notification from a social network pops up on the screen. Your attention is instantly hijacked. 40 minutes later, you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through other people's photos, and your initial idea is irretrievably lost, leaving behind only the bitter aftertaste of wasted time. The Japanese system of analog notes creates a powerful physical boundary. Your paper notebook is not connected to the global network. It will never send you a sudden notification. It does not vibrate, does not glow in the dark, and does not demand your attention when it lies on the table.
When you open it, you are left alone exclusively with your own thoughts. This is your personal, absolutely quiet and protected space. You can sit in a very noisy office, in a crowded subway car, or in a bustling cafe. But as soon as you lower your eyes to a blank sheet of paper, you instantly find yourself in a zone of absolute control. This feeling of complete isolation from external information noise becomes a kind of life-saving anchor for your overloaded psyche. You always know that you have one place in the world where nothing and no one demands an immediate reaction from you. It is a place where time flows at the speed of your pen. Before we move on to exactly how to structure these notes, it is worth taking a critical look at our attitude toward the very process of capturing thoughts. The Western world constantly demands perfection in everything. We buy expensive, exquisitely beautiful notebooks and then are afraid to make the first entry in them for weeks. We are afraid to ruin the perfect white page with our uneven handwriting, a minor mistake, or just a silly thought.
We subconsciously want our to-do lists to look so perfect, as if they were printed for an exhibition of a successful person's achievements. This perfectionism paralyzes us. The traditional Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi teaches us a radically different approach. It teaches us to see true beauty in imperfection, in the natural flow of things, in what bears the marks of use. Your external brain is not a museum exhibit, nor is it a showcase of your perfect plans. It is a living, working tool. It is the rough draft of your mind, a testing ground for your thoughts. Allow it to be a bit chaotic. Allow yourself to cross out words with thick lines, draw crooked and incomprehensible diagrams in the margins, and leave coffee stains. The aesthetic appearance of the filled page does not matter at all. What matters is only how empty, light, and clear your head becomes after you have transferred all your internal chaos onto paper. When you stop striving for perfection in keeping notes, you quietly strip away another heavy layer of daily stress. You simply allow your thoughts to flow onto the paper exactly as they are in that given second. Unfiltered, raw, real, and sometimes tangled.
And here we come to the most important practice that reliably closes the entire cycle of working with the external brain. This is the evening practice of forgiveness and letting go. Every evening, when a long day finally comes to an end, you do not scroll through your feed in bed. You sit down and open your notebook. You look at the list of what you plan to do today. You have successfully completed a certain portion of the tasks, and you feel deep, genuine, tactile satisfaction when you physically cross them out with a pen. No digital click,
No animation in an app will ever replace this physical feeling of completion and victory. But the reality is that there is almost always something left that you didn't have time for or couldn't manage to do. In any digital system, these unfinished tasks are automatically and soullessly transferred to the next day without your participation. They accumulate for weeks, creating an endless snowball of guilt that presses down on you every morning. In an analog note-taking system, you are spared this automation, and this is the best thing that can happen to your productivity. To move a task to tomorrow, you must make a very conscious decision.
You have to expend your energy and physically rewrite this uncompleted task onto a new page. And this is where another hidden magic begins to work. If you rewrite the exact same task 3 or 4 days in a row, you inevitably stop and ask yourself an honest question. Does this really need to be done at all? Why is my internal resistance so high? Very often, it turns out that this task is simply an obligation imposed by someone else. Perhaps it is someone else's goal that has nothing to do with your true values. Perhaps it is an ambition that has already lost its relevance. And then you make a decision. You simply cross it out. You consciously reject it forever. And this is not a sign of laziness. It is an act of extremely deep care for yourself and your time. You are not just mechanically managing your schedule. You are masterfully managing your limited attention. You discard what no longer serves you, doing it quietly, calmly, and without a single drop of regret. You leave in your external brain only what truly makes sense. Another unobvious habit that shapes the perfect external brain is the principle of a single source of truth.
Our modern chaos is often born from fragmentation. We have a work calendar on the computer, a grocery list app on the phone, sticky notes on the monitor, a sketchbook, and notes in a messenger. When information is scattered across 10 different places, your internal brain is still forced to work, trying to remember exactly where you wrote down a particular thought. This creates mental tension all over again. The Japanese approach advocates the use of one single notebook for absolutely everything. This is your universal companion. In the very same place, you can have dry financial calculations, next to them, a reading list, and on the next page, your deep emotional experiences or vacation plans. When you know that absolutely your whole life, all your ideas and obligations are located between the two physical covers of a single object, your background anxiety level drops to almost zero. You are no longer afraid of losing something. If something is not in this notebook, it means it simply does not exist in your universe. These practices do not require iron willpower from you.
They do not require waking up at 5 in the morning, taking an ice-cold shower, or reading dozens of complex books on time management. They require only one small object that can easily be put in a bag or pocket, and your sincere willingness to abandon unnecessary complexity. This is a very quiet and invisible process of transformation. At first, in just a few days, you will simply notice that you have started sleeping much deeper and better. Your brain no longer needs to work a grueling night shift, desperately trying not to forget tomorrow's meetings or problems. Then, after a few weeks, you will realize that you have become significantly less irritable when communicating with loved ones. You no longer react to every minor notification or request like a global fire that needs to be urgently extinguished. You begin to very clearly distinguish between true urgency and foreign, imposed noise. Your external brain reliably takes on all the dirty and heavy rough work of memorizing facts, leaving your true, internal mind a luxurious space for silence, for observing the world, for creativity, and for life itself.
When you walk down the street of your city, you can simply look at the trees, the architecture, the sky, and feel the wind, rather than replaying endless, exhausting lists of undone tasks in your head. You finally reclaim your legitimate right to full presence in your own life.
That man in the quiet Kyoto coffee shop has no supernatural abilities, super memory, or secret technologies. He simply realized clearly one day that his inner peace and mental clarity are worth much more than all the artificial digital efficiency of the modern world. He consciously refused to hold chaos inside himself and trusted it to simple paper. And you can do the very same thing today. You do not need a complex system, and you do not need perfect handwriting. You only need to allow yourself to let go of control. Just pick up a pen, open a blank page, and allow your mind to finally exhale. Peace begins with the first written word.